Welcome everyone to Building Back Better, supporting Vancouver Island through COVID-19 with the Honourable Mélanie Joly, and we're delighted to have the Minister with us today. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we're joining this morning's special presentation from traditional territories across Canada. I'm personally joining from the traditional territories of the Wahongrin peoples, known today as the Songhees and the Esquimalt nations, whose traditional relationship with the land continues to this day. The Honourable Mélanie Joly is Minister of Economic Development and Official Languages. She was first elected to represent Hunstic Carterville in the House of Commons in 2019. In her ministerial roles, Minister Joly has worked to promote Canadian culture and to grow and increase the visibility of Canada's tourism sector. She has also worked to safeguard Canada's 2 official languages while promoting the use of French in Canada and around the world, including in the digital sphere. Prior to entering federal politics, Minister Joly founded the Vraya Changement pour Montreal Party and ran for Mayor of Montreal in 2013 under its banner. Minister Joly holds an Honours Bachelor of Law from the University of Montreal and a Magister Juris in European and Comparative Law from the University of Oxford. She is the author of Changing the Rules of the Game, in which she shares her vision for public policy and civic engagement. She was named a young global leader by the World Economic Forum. We're truly honored and delighted to have the Minister with us today. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Fred, for this kind introduction. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be with all of you today, as of course we're wrapping up this very important week, and which is called the Rising Economy Week 2020. Of course, I would like to thank also Emilie, the Rosenroll, who's the CEO of the South Island Prosperity Partnership, and also she's the chair of the Rising Economy Taskforce. And I would like to thank her team. I know a lot of you have worked extremely hard on making this a reality and finding solutions for the recovery. When we look back, it's been already 9 months since my last trip to BC. And that was actually my last trip before the beginning of the pandemic. At the time, I was in Victoria talking to the BC Tourism Association, and I had the chance also to make some announcements in official languages. Donc, j'avais eu l'occasion d'annoncer la stratégie de recrutement pour les professeurs de français un petit peu partout à travers le pays. J'avais choisi la Colombie-Britannique pour le faire. And so earlier this month, though, I had the chance to be back virtually in BC, and I've been participating in many of the economic development events that are important for the region, particularly the State of the Island Summit, and as well I had a good roundtable with the Greater Vancouver Board of Trade and with some of its members earlier this week. And so in both events, clearly what people were expressing was the importance of a made in BC solution in terms of economic development. Today, I would like to have the chance to talk to you about 3 things. The first one is the challenges that businesses are facing on the island. The second is what the government is doing and what is the approach when it comes to COVID-19 and our regional development agencies, and particularly what we're doing in the West. And finally, talking about the made in BC solutions. So what are the different solutions that we're taking all across the country and what can be done for BC? So I know the economy is still facing many, many challenges, but events like today are extremely helpful in finding ways to make sure that people have good jobs and that the economy can be on a path forward towards recovery. So let's talk about the economic challenges on the South Island. The pandemic is challenging us in many ways. We know that. And we're all trying to find solutions to adapt. Um, I'm very much aware that yesterday the BC government uh, came up with some of the strictest physical distancing measures since the beginning of the pandemic. And I know this is affecting, of course, businesses. As a former entrepreneur myself, I understand the everyday struggles of operating a business and trying to mitigate risks. And right now, clearly, in this pandemic and economic crisis, uh, risks are everywhere. And it is important for the government to be there to help you mitigate these risks. Um, we also know that when we look particularly at the island of BC, the tourism sector is extremely important. The island is beautiful and it is attracting so many people, usually every year, that come and support the tourism sector and people working in it all across the island. Um, it is linked to billions of dollars and supporting thousands of jobs just on the island. And the impact of the pandemic has been devastating for the sector. When we look at it, there's more than $1.4 billion that have not been spent this year on the island alone. And so this is an example of the challenges that we've seen that is facing what's going on the island, and we take it very seriously. I take it certainly very seriously, being the minister in charge also of the tourism sector. But at the same time, I remain optimistic for what will be coming, we hope, in the coming months. And I have good reasons to think like that. And therefore, let me talk to you about what we're doing uh, for you during the context of this first of the second wave, as we've done during the first wave. Of course, talking to entrepreneurs and people that are involved in economic development, clearly we all know the measures, the government programs, and even the acronyms that are linked to these programs, because they're present around, they're extremely present and helpful. So the first one, of course, is the CEBA loan and the support to small businesses. The other one that is extremely impactful is definitely the wage subsidy, which is key. But also, glad to say that the Senate passed C9 yesterday, and that is the bill that includes the support to the rent costs, but also other forms of fixed costs. And so for really impacted businesses, fixed costs such as property tax, school tax, and insurance will be allowed to be supported through this new through this new program. So that will also help the tourism sector and other sectors that could be impacted. Um, of course, what we've seen as we were developing all these programs is sometimes businesses were falling through the cracks. And as we were really trying to have a form of equal opportunities all across the country, we needed to have a much more tailored approach. And that's how we developed a new role for the regional development agencies all across the country. And we invested in a new fund, which is called the Regional Relief and Recovery Fund. It is now a fund of $1.5 billion. And so therefore, it is for businesses that don't have access to the CEBA loans or cannot access the wage subsidy. They can come and see Western Economic Diversification, which is based out of Vancouver, and that can really play a role to support these businesses. In BC alone, this fund has helped 9,000 people to keep their jobs, and it has supported more than 2,000 businesses all across BC. We also supported the South Island Prosperity Partnership. And not only are we supporting the partnership, but we're supporting its mission of really creating development and economic development on the island through a strong and diversified economy. And there are two projects that we're supporting. The first one is the Rising Economy Taskforce, which everybody knows about at this point. And also another one is the Ocean Futures Innovation Hub in Victoria. We've helped also many businesses on the island, as of course the pandemic is still impacting businesses. For example, the Open Ocean Robotics, which is an innovative business in Victoria that has been producing self-driving boats. We've also helped the Wilson's Transportation Group, also in Victoria. And with that support, the company has been able to keep their employees. And finally, we
My apologies, Minister, but your microphone has been muted for somehow. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alicia. Sorry about that. Why do I think that Western economic diversification has such an impact? Well, we all know that the federal government, because of the nature of how our federal system works, is far away from people's reality usually. But during this pandemic, we've been present in people's lives more than before, more than ever. But Western economic diversification, this regional development agency, is really a way to be the closest to the ground possible, closer to many key players in the regions than usually we would be through our department structure that is based in Ottawa. Actually, Western economic diversification is the only department headquartered in the West. Now, of course, as I'm talking to you about Western economic diversification, it brings me to my last point, which is the government of Canada is planning with you a successful recovery. We've already said that we're committed to recreate the 1 million jobs that were lost all across the country since the beginning of the pandemic. Also, we've said that we wanted to extend the wage subsidy until next summer. And finally, through our regional development agencies, we've had a very tailored approach. But I wanted to talk to you also about what it means to BC. Something caught my interest, which was in a letter. The South Island Prosperity Partnership proposed many solutions that talk about having a robust regional approach for economic development. And what the partnership was highlighting is that was the only way to really be able to have solutions that would be long-term ones and that would further support the resilience of communities all across the island. And they also highlighted something I've been championing for some time, which is never to abandon, of course, traditional industries, but to invest in also new areas of growth. Of course, that's exactly what we usually do in regional economic development. And so the letter that was written was not only relevant, I couldn't agree with it more, because after 4 days of discussions, I think that clearly you've been able to offer solutions and responses about the importance of having a greener economy, about the importance of regions and having a sustainable air travel. But when you look at everything that has been discussed through the past 4 days, well, there is a common theme. And that common theme is that BC needs a tailored approach in terms of economic development. And our regional development agencies have been responsive to local needs. I think we can do even better. And of course, that's exactly why I'm here with you today. I'm clearly determined to develop a tailored approach that will be for British Columbians by British Columbians. And I think that that's something that the South Island Prosperity Partnership shares. And so my message to you in conclusion is let's work together and let's make it happen. Merci beaucoup. It's been a pleasure.
Well, Minister Joly, that was an incredible presentation. We are truly very appreciative of course, everything that you've been doing for our region, the West in general and Greater Victoria, of course, but also for being here with us on our 5th day of this very important event. We hope to see you again here next year because we'll be doing it again. So I do have some questions for you, and I will just dive right in because
Yeah, go ahead.
we want to hear from you. Great. So Minister, I want to build on some of your remarks and specifically how you and the South Island Prosperity Partnership, we both highlighted support for regionally identified priorities to support economic recovery and growth. And I'm wondering how we can use this to play a role in the recovery post-pandemic.
Well, you know, when I look at how we've developed our approach across the country in terms of regional economic development, we have 6 agencies across the country. One is Atlantic Canada, 1 in Quebec, 2 in Ontario, 1 for the North, 1 for the South. We have the 1 for the Great North, and then we have WD, which is Western Economic Diversification for the entire West. I think that WD is a very relevant organization that has been there for now since 1988. But I also think that the West is not a monolith. It's not a monolithic block. And I think that BC's economy is very different from the ones in the prairies. So that's something I want to focus on. I want to be able to work with you, Emilie, and your team to find ways to be even closer to the economic realities of people in British Columbia, and not only in Vancouver, but also in different regions of British Columbia, and certainly in on the island of Vancouver. So that's my message to you and your members. It's an invitation, but also it's a action plan.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I think truly you're hitting it on in the heart of the what we found as well, that there's nothing homogeneous about this pandemic, and everyone has really faced a very mixed reality. So thanks for that point. My next question is, tourism has been significantly impacted in Victoria, of course, and we're extremely, it's a very, very important sector to us. So we found that we're very much impacted by these border closures and some of the required lockdown measures to contain the first wave and now the second wave. What is the Government of Canada doing to support businesses and communities that are being affected by these lockdown measures?
Thank you, Emilie. I've mentioned it in my speech how much the tourism sector was important to Vancouver Island, and being the minister in charge of the tourism sector, I have a soft spot for the industry. I was there when we had the best year ever, which was 2019, and the worst ever since really the evolution of the industry after the Second World War. So we've been there with very wide measures, including obviously the wage subsidy, which is extremely important for the sector. We've been there also with the CEBA accounts and everything in line with the rent relief. I think that the new bill that just passed the Senate, so I'm hopeful this will come back to the House very, very quickly, and finally, I hope starting next week or the week after, businesses will be able to write to the CRA to have access to these fixed cost support. But I think that will go a very long way for the industry. Also, what we've done is we've supported the BC tourism industry through working with destination marketing organizations, which we call DMOs. We've certainly supported the destination marketing organization on the island to help them also support their members. And of course, we've worked with Destination Canada, which is based out of Vancouver, to support BC to entice everything in line with local travel. We did that during the summer. And so all the travel local campaigns you may have seen or support was linked to a lot through the federal funding. I've had many conversations also with Lisa Bear, who still now is the minister in charge of the portfolio. We'll see how things evolve, but we've been actively collaborating to make sure that we find solutions for the BC tourism sector. And I commend the work that has been done by the BC government on this.
Oh, that's fantastic. We found that, you know, a year ago, Greater Victoria's unemployment rate was the lowest in the country, and then today our unemployment rate has actually tripled, whereas BC's has doubled. So that reliance on tourism is certainly an important story here. Thank you for your comments. My next question is, COVID-19 has disproportionate impacts, of course, on different people, geographies, and sectors. What is the Government of Canada doing to provide greater support to communities so that the negative effects are as minimized as possible?
Yes, well, we've seen also that the pandemic has impacted even more some of the vulnerable communities in terms of the health, because of a lot of the frontline workers are coming from different ethnic communities sometimes and are new immigrants, or also in terms of the economic crisis, because definitely we're in a she session. Women have been more impacted by the fact that sometimes children had to stay home, and therefore a lot of times women were staying home. Although there's been way more teleworking than ever, the burden was sometimes even a bit more on women. Also, the sectors that have been impacted by the pandemic, the service sector in particular, is a sector where there are lots of women. And in the tourism industry also, there are lots of women. And so we know that we have to be a bit more targeted in our approach. Through the different measures, we've made sure that we've increased, for example, the GST support, and we've sent a lot of direct support to people at the beginning, and also CERB, which was extremely important. But we've been also a bit more tailored, definitely supporting Indigenous communities, and not only Indigenous communities through direct support for their health system, but also Indigenous communities in terms of helping them in economic development. And we've done many measures, many initiatives through Western Economic Diversification. But at the end of the day, Emilie, you know, this pandemic and this economic crisis cannot exacerbate the gaps that we saw before the pandemic. People cannot be, we cannot leave people behind, and that's why I think more than ever the Government of Canada needs to use its strength, its power, and its fiscal force to make sure that we have a strong middle class, and that at the end of the day, we will be able to get through this if we stay shoulder to shoulder and work together.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very reassuring. We've done research to find that, you know, past pandemics do increase that divide and exacerbate a lot of inequality. So it's crucial, I think, that as you say, we keep mind of those that might be disproportionately affected. Thank you. Another question for you. It is anticipated that the economic recovery might take years as a result of this pandemic. So how will Canada ensure that businesses and communities are supported over this perhaps very lengthy transition?
Well, of course, my colleague will come up with a fiscal update in the coming days, weeks. We've seen other countries come up with their own fiscal plan for recovery. Europe has done so, clearly France and Germany. The US was working on one, and of course, we hope that we'll be able to partner with the President-elect Biden and find ways to a good recovery of the North American economy. But one thing is for sure is that we'll be there for Canadians, and we will be providing the right support. So we've done it through the first wave. We are here in the second wave, and we're still here, and we're still here to support businesses and jobs. And of course, we know we've lost around 1 million jobs since the beginning of the pandemic, and we need to not further scarring of our economy, but we need to be there and provide the right remedy to make sure that we are able to offer to the next generation an economy that is inclusive and that creates opportunities for them and eventually also for their children.
Right. Okay, I have one final question.
Yes.
Minister, how can the South Vancouver Island effectively rebuild amidst a second wave of the pandemic? And we just heard yesterday about new lockdown measures that are perhaps necessary, but also alarming, I think, to many in our community.
I thought, Emilie, you would be the one answering that question. It's okay, I'll take it. There are different ways. Obviously, it is by partnering with you that we'll be able to find solutions. And I've talked about the tourism sector. Obviously, after the pandemic, Canadians will be strongly encouraged to discover Canada. And discover the island. As a Québécoise, you can hear from my accent and my name, I'm always very fond of talking about the Pacific Rim National Park, which is my favorite national park in the country, and Tofino and all. But that being said, apart from the tourism sector, which is key to the island, I had many good conversations with Lisa Helps about the future of the blue economy and what can be done in terms of also increasing opportunities in everything in line with oceans and technology and fisheries, etc. Of course, this is something that Atlantic Canada has been working a lot over the years, but recently, if we look at the last years, British Columbia and particularly Vancouver Island was really at the forefront of everything in line with the innovation. So what we've done recently with through Western Economic Diversification is support many of these businesses and support many of these incubators and some key infrastructure projects sometimes that need to have feasibility studies, just that kind of small light or like small and just the right beginning to afterwards have a great infrastructure project. That's what we do. We fund the organizations that are working on it, that do the consultation with people on the ground. And that's what we've done with the Ocean Hub. And we also have the Ocean Supercluster that is in BC. So I think there's lots there that is in line with the beautiful geography of BC, the great talent of BC also, and clearly the great institutions and colleges also that are in the region.
Well, that's fantastic. So, Minister Joly, on vous remercie mille fois pour nous joindre ici. We're very thrilled to have you here, and of course, I've worked from coast to coast with ACOA as well, and it is so lovely to have a minister as committed to a regional approach and a customized and tailored approach. So we thank you very much for that. And you've touched on so many important themes from the week, from the she session, which is a bit of a tongue twister, all the way to this afternoon we have restarting our economy, or restarting tourism, and many other topics all the way in between. So thank you again for your collaboration and your support, and we look forward to being part of the solution together.
Thank you, Emilie. Take good care.
Thank you.